All right, so who are you and what do you do?
I'm Steve Johnson, and I make videos about classical music, trying to make it more accessible to the average listener on my channel called The Listener's Guide.
Cool. So, you do this on YouTube, you do educational stuff on YouTube. Why?
Well, I have always been passionate about education. I got my bachelor's in music education, and I've also been making YouTube videos for about 8 years now, so I figured I'd just put the two together. It seemed like the most logical thing to do.
Nice. So, how long did you just say you've been doing YouTube stuff?
Well, I've been making videos on YouTube as a whole for about 8 years, but this channel in particular I started about 3 years ago.
Okay. And how's that been? Like,
It's kind of slow going because I have to do everything myself from research, scripting, hosting, and editing is all me right now, and I'm, also a full-time grad student, and so I just have a lot to do, which is fine. It means that everything I put out is, mine, but also it just takes a lot of work, which means I can't upload as frequently.
so it may be a little hard to speak to because, like, you do music, but I imagine you watch other YouTube EDU stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the big differences that you have found making music content versus what you see on, like, science channels, like in terms of difficulties or...
One of the challenges that I find is that there's not... Just a second, I'm about to sneeze.
Yeah. Don't look.
Maybe.
Oh. There he goes.
Is my face still okay?
Oh, your face is great.
Okay. One of the challenges that I found is that there's not as much news to talk about. I feel like a lot of science channels, you can tell that they're all kind of reading the same journals and coming up with exciting ways to present new discoveries. And in the classical music world, it's not that doesn't happen, but most of our news is sort of interpretive. And so a lot of what I focus on is kind of teaching people how to think about music instead of just conveying new information, if that makes sense. Another challenge that I have in particular is that because it's so music focused, I like to use musical examples, and getting good musical examples that are relevant and interesting and within YouTube's terms and conditions is really difficult. But I've got some ideas that might help me work around. I don't know.
Nice. So going forward, so you've been doing YouTube stuff in general for 3 years, and then this you said for 1 year, right? Or 3 years. For the
8 years total. Listener's
Gotcha.
Guide is 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have anything like on the horizon that you're like, ooh, I really want to do this, or you have like plans of doing anything in specific?
I have a whole lot of ideas for videos and series, and even sort of off the YouTube platform, other ways to engage with the audience. And really the issue right now is that I need to work on audience development for any of that to be able to happen. Which, sucks to talk about. Nobody wants to say, I'm burdened by how small I am, but at the end of the day, I have to work with what I have, and that's really what I'm doing right now, and just trying to keep the end goal in sight, I guess.
Yeah. So, how do you feel YouTube serves as a place to do like really informal music education?
I think it's great, honestly. I have seen a whole lot of different media try to talk about music, and it seems like there's really early on in that medium's life cycle is a great time to start using it to talk about music in ways that relate to people. Aaron Copland had a really famous book. I guess books weren't really new media back then, but that kind of scholarly material intended for a general audience was a pretty new thing. And the same thing with NPR. But now people who listen to NPR hear a very different approach to talking about music. That it does appeal to a certain audience, but if you're not interested in it, it can sound really dry and boring. And so I kind of want to talk about it in ways that newer generations can relate to, I guess, and just get people excited to listen to a genre that I'm all about breaking down barriers to entry, I guess. And it can seem really daunting to get into something that's considered, high art, when a lot of the time people are just making jokes about sex and stuff,
Yeah. So, and you may have answered this, or I may have asked it. I don't think I asked it, but why music? Like, what do you like about music that you want to share it with other people? Or I guess musicology specifically.
Yeah, I guess, I can't speak to music in general because that's just so much a part of who I am that I can't even separate it. But in terms of musicology, what I kind of just want to bring people along on my own ride, really, because I keep finding out all these interesting stories that really help humanize these composers that, and not even just composers, other musicians, that have really been turned into sort of quasi-deities, which is totally wrong. And I really want to humanize them and get people to relate to sort of the entire context that music happens in, instead of just having it be this sort of I want to take it off the pedestal that it's currently on, I guess.
Nice. Last question. On the listener's guide, do you have a sign off, thanks for listening, or something like that?
Not officially. I think I've said a lot of times, and I'll see you next time on the listener's guide, but it's not an official sign off.
All right. Well, we have to end this somehow, so go ahead.
I'll see you next time on the listener's guide.
All right.